Welcome to the Hope Podcast, 10 minutes of weekly encouragement for parents of kids who learn differently. My name is Jimelle Carlson, and I'm so glad you're here. I hope you enjoy this week's episode. Hey friends, welcome back. So this week we're going to be talking about how to help protect our kids when they're online. And I'm really excited. I have a guest that's going to be joining me, Clay Cranford, who is an expert in child safety and digital parenting. After 20 years in law enforcement, Clay went on to start a company called Cyber Safety Cop, where he travels the country talking to different schools and talking to parents and children about internet safety and how to protect themselves and how we can help protect our children. He has also written several books, parenting books that help direct parents and give them input and advice on how to help support your kids in a world that is constantly has new technology coming out. How do we handle that? How do we manage it? And how do we keep our kids safe? So again, I'm super excited and I hope you enjoy this interview that I had with Clay. Hey, Clay, thanks for joining me.
Hi, Jimelle. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so I'm so excited to have you join us. Last week, I was talking to our parents about screen time and video time and that type of thing. And one thing that I mentioned briefly was about internet safety and how sometimes we can have the illusion that our kids are safe because they're sitting in our homes, safe up in their bedrooms or in our living rooms. But I am eager to have you share with our parents the reality of how safe our kids are when we're giving them access to the internet.
Yeah, it's a huge topic. It's kind of consumed my adult professional life. I've written 2 books on it, Parenting the Digital World and Screen Time Standoff, which is specifically about screen time. And as a school resource officer. So yes, it's a moving target. There's always something new. Like we just before we started this, we were talking about AI, right? So there's that going on. I would say for parents is that there's more to this than you may even realize. I have a 90-minute parent talk that I do for schools, and parents walk out of there just blown away. Like I even have people who are like, they'll come up and they say, I'm a internet, security specialist for my company, and I didn't know any of this. So it's to some degree there is, spam and phishing and like the scams and things like that. That is really not the big problem for your kid, although it can happen. But it's your kid being exposed to things that are not healthy for them.
Right.
And so at a very beginning level, if you let a child have kind of unfettered access to the internet, you're going to have a child who's going to be exposed to hypersexual things, including pornography, which will radically shape their perception of love, intimacy, consent in a physical relationship. All the things get warped based on this kind of fantasy that pornography sells.
And what's the average age now of kids being exposed to?
The average age of the child is I think 11 and a half or something. It's gone down a little bit. I think originally it was 12, like just a year or two ago. So you have kids who are just purely accidentally falling into these websites. You just Google a wrong thing, or you're a kid that's just curious. Of course, like I raised 2 boys and they were curious, and of course they're going to be looking around, and like that's. I guess that's what makes this so difficult is that there is a biological drive to be curious about this. And what they end up finding are things that are really, really destructive, as opposed to them talking to their parent or a friend and, like how, what we had to do is very different than what they're getting. And then also you have ultra violence. You have people wearing GoPros on the battlefield and kids are being exposed to really, really scary, grotesque things, violent things. That's also not good for their brains. What are they looking at on their screens? So we need to be thinking not just quantity, but quality. And so I would recommend, putting some parental controls on your router at home. If your child has a device, whether that's an iPad or an iPhone or a laptop, you should be putting something on that would block that inappropriate stuff. One that I really like is called cleanbrowsing.org. In fact, I think the guy who owns the company is a Christian guy, but it does a really good job of it basically routes your internet traffic through their VPN, and it keeps you from going to inappropriate stuff, and you can dial that in however you want it. for your kid. And then you have like all the other things, right? You have AI, you have social media, and just, in fact, just giving your child a device, a smartphone or an iPad has mental health outcomes. The earlier you give it to them, the worse off their mental health outcomes are. And it's not even, we're not even talking about like what's on the device, but merely giving them the device, which presumably would give them access to the internet and social media. But sapienlabs.org, which I don't know if have you looked at their website?
No, no.
I think you'd be interested in seeing it because they do it worldwide. More than 40,000 people have taken their mental health questionnaire. It's like 47 questions, free to do. And then it gives you a mental health quotient. And then and there's like a spectrum on that mental health quotient. So like if you're, like 200, you're killing it. Like your mental health's really good. Or if you're like negative 200, it's very bad. And there's like a bunch of stuff in between. So they looked at young adults, like would be my children's or your children's age, who are in their early 20s. So they grew up, the first generation of children who had got the device, got the social media, but now are adults. So the first crop of adults who got this when they're in puberty or pre-puberty. They asked them, so they have their mental health quotient, right? Then they asked them, what age were you when you first received your smartphone or iPad? And the younger they were, the worse off their mental health was as a 20-year-old.
Wow.
So we need more research, but there's direct correlation. It's hard to kind of argue when you see a line doing this, right? From, age 5 to, when 18, when they got their device, and it just is a straight line for their mental health, it kind of makes you wonder, like, what are we doing here? So I would say, parents, you need to have conversations with your kid that no one had to have with you. And of course, you don't know what those are. So I would invite you to visit my website, cybersafetycop.com. Our whole thing that we do is about parents connecting to their kids, educators as well, anybody working with kids. My book, Parenting the Digital World, just released the 4th edition. It's brand new, rewritten. Every chapter begins, and actually peppered throughout, with actual stories that I had working with kids. So I kind of show you what it looks like, what we're talking about in that chapter. And then every chapter ends with the key takeaways, conversation starters. How do you talk to your kid about pornography? How do you talk to your kid about AI? If your kid got exposed to something inappropriate, how do you have that conversation after that, right? And then action steps. So here are the key takeaways. Here's the conversation starters. What should you start doing in your home right now? And that's really it. I would say, really quick, put some controls on your child's device, parental controls, cleanbrowsing.org. I don't know if when you were talking about screen time, if you talked about apps like Bark or Hour Pact. So these help you just kind of turnkey the parental controls for time, the amount of time they spent. And also there's filters. And then I would say start asking questions and be curious about what your child is looking at, and maybe not starting like at a very judgmental place. Just say, hey, what do you find interesting here? Why do you like spending time here? Get to understand why they're doing what they're doing, and then start having some real conversations, which most importantly should include, if you get into a situation and you're feeling like I'm in over my head, it's making me feel a little yucky, something, you can come to me and tell me, and I will not punish you for that. I told my boys, if you're looking at something inappropriate and you come to me and say, hey, Dad, I was looking at this, I'm not going to get mad. We're going to talk about it. Be empathetic.
Yeah. It's hard to not react when you're shocked.
Yeah. And don't be disappointed.
Right.
Because
they're just a human with curiosity, just like you said. We all, no matter how wonderful you are, you're going to get curious. And sometimes things pop up that you weren't expecting and suck you down a path.
You want a kid who feels safe to come to you if they made a bad choice and now they're thinking, I have nowhere to go. I don't know who to talk to. And maybe they think their life is over.
Yeah.
And that's what really concerns me, especially when it comes to predators and how they box these kids in with these threats. These kids think, well, I made a bad choice, and now they have this image of me, and if they told my parents are going to kill me or throw me out. Or you need to let your kid know up front, nope, that's not going to happen.
That no matter what anyone says to you, you can come to me and we're going to work it out and figure it out.
And then you got to prove it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and we were just talking before we started here about AI. Everyone's going to AI for advice, and our kids are growing up and being taught to do that as a go-to. And there's that big case right now in the news about the local teenager who committed suicide based on the advice he was getting from AI, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Just earlier this year, Common Sense did a survey of teens. 72% said they've tried it. So they've tried these AI chatbot companion bots, and 52% say they use them regularly.
Wow.
So don't think this is like a fringe thing. There are a couple kids are trying out. No, they all kind of are to some degree. They're curious. I mean, it's a really cool, interesting technology. Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But also, like, you need to have a conversation with the kid. Like, the thing that whatever that thing is telling you, it's not a reliable source.
Right. It's a robot that you're
It's
talking
yeah,
about, not a human.
it's not a human. It's not thoroughly tested to make sure that it's not going to tell you something harmful. And in a couple cases, it has.
Yeah.
Obviously. What I'm afraid of, and I'm sure you covered this, we talked about screen time, is that if you're on average, kids are spending 9 hours on screens a day. What does that give you time else for?
Exactly. That's exactly what I talked about last week. I didn't give specific amount of time you should have your child spend on screens, but I said calculate the percentage of time. If you come home from school and you have 4 hours left before you go to bed, if even 50% of that time is on a device or screens, that's probably off. When are they going outside? When are they interacting with humans? When are they playing? So us adults are guilty of that and need to kind of process.
Maybe that's the other thing we need to mention. You got to be a good role model.
Exactly.
If you're sitting next to your kid and you're just, doom scrolling over here and you're telling your kid to like go outside and play or whatever, like that doesn't work, does it?
That's one of the hardest. Yes. I talk about that regularly with our parents. Our kids are going to do what we do. They're not going to do what we say as much. So we need to be the role model, and it's hard. We're all guilty of it.
Have empathy. I mean,
yeah,
kids are playing games and they're scrolling because they feel bad, and by doing that, it actually shuts down the amygdala, right? It shuts down the emotional center of their brain,
right?
For the same reason that people go home and just chill and watch TV or drink alcohol.
Yes.
It shuts down that part of your brain. So they're dealing with their feelings, sublimating it through this technology. So if you're a kid struggling with friendships and connecting, and you're going to this AI app because that's fulfilling that need for you, that's not healthy.
Right.
Right? And that's a kid who may form like an unhealthy attachment to that app and really not dealing with the root emotional issue that may be going on with that kid.
Right. But same in video games, you have there's outside people joining these games. So not just robots talking to our kids, but actual human predators that are posing as children on social media, on games. And I want to have you come join us at the school sometime to talk to our parents. But in the meantime, thank you for sharing about your book and tell us about the website again. How do they reach
go to cybersafetycop.com. We have some free resources that are available on the downloads page. We have a membership that is like going to Starbucks once a month, and you get access to a lot of important stuff, including the webinars that I've done. I do one every month. And one of those webinars, I think you'd be really interested in seeing this, and I think maybe your parents would too, where I interview a young woman now. She's in her early 20s, but when she was 12, she was sextorted and basically trafficked online for 4 years. And her mom was on this webinar. And every parent needs to see this webinar because you need to sit down with your kid and have that, like I said, that conversation. If you blow it, it's okay. So yes, there's a lot to know, and there's always something new, which makes it a little frustrating, but we try to make it as turnkey as possible at cybersafetycop.com. Come to schools and talk to students, K through 12, and we share our stories. And we try to make kids a little more resilient. I think that's what should be our goal. We can't make them perfect. They're not going to make great choices.
Right.
We just want to make them resilient so that if they make a mistake, they can bounce back.
Exactly. Thank you for what you're doing. This is so, so important. Parents are overwhelmed. They don't know where to go to. And I appreciate that you're dedicating your life to doing this, to protecting our kids and helping to educate parents. And thanks for joining me. And I'll make sure that links to your resources are in the show notes so that parents can reach you. And like I said, I'm going to try to get you into our school here sometime soon.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Clay.
Thanks, Jimelle.
Thank you again for listening to the Hope Podcast. If you'd like to connect with me or offer suggestions for topics you'd like covered in future episodes, You can visit me on Instagram at Jimelle Carlson. And if you'd like to learn more about Foundations Cognitive Schools, you can visit our website at foundationscognitive.com.